Welcome back. You're watching the Daily Report right here on TV47 as we continue to analyze Kenya's foreign policy in the wake of President William Ruto's visits and facing east and west. We saw, coming hot on the heels of the state visit in the United States. He's now in Seoul, South Korea. He'll be heading to Italy later in the month. And so we are just, trying to analyze and to see the place of Kenya in the geopolitics. And Stephen, he said that, Kenya should not be very fixated. Is that what you argued? Should not be very fixated in where you look. Should be free.
Yes.
You argue, on the other hand, Stephen, that you should not have,
very many friends and players,
if you could call it that. So, where should Kenya be facing then?
No, I don't mean that. Of course, we should not be fixated.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, as I said, we should not spread ourselves too thin.
Okay.
Because now we are dealing with everyone. By the time you start auditing, where was this deal? That was Italy. That was what? Who is taking stock of this and following up all these deals that we are making?
They made sure that's why the cabinet is, there is ministers and PSS. But
we know what happens. As I said, we have been there before. We have all these things. We have promises. Uhuru Kenyatta was there before. Kibaki was there before, and they made deals with tens of countries. Where are those deals today? Because we should not be having this conversation if at all the promises that have been made by Germany, by who during the other previous presidents were followed through. Okay? If you look at a country like South Korea, I was looking at the Kenya Economic Survey 2023, and the imports from South Korea we imported from South Korea 50.2 billion in 2022, and kerosene type jet fuel, and we exported goods worth how much? Can you take a guess? Which is pocket change for some rich men in Kenya. 6.1 billion.
6.1 billion.
That is what we exported to
South Korea.
So what are we talking about, really? You see, I think we need to have a vision as a country. If at all we are serious about breaking even and joining the big boys, like now being at par with people like South Korea and so forth, we just need leadership that is resolute. Otherwise, it's not about, I think, as I said, what is our grand strategy, okay? I listened to the CS Foreign Affairs and the Prime CS, Mr. Musalia Mudavadi. He had come to USIU, and he was talking about the grand strategy. And I listened, yes, it was inspiring, but then we didn't get a hook, because we must have a hook. You must have a hook around which, you are always gravitating, okay? So it will do a red flag. If someone gives you a bad deal, you'll have a red flag. And it will go ting, so no, there's something wrong here.
The buzz sound.
This is not our best interest. So I think, for me, the major thing is the economy. And this thing about democracy everywhere making a lot of noise, because that is what has really taken us astray. When you talk about democracy, for us it's noise. That if you can insult the president on Twitter and all that, now we are democratic. If you can walk naked in town, that is democracy. I think democracy should serve the common interest of people, and it should be able to open up the talents, okay? So if we look at what our major interests, and especially in the economy, so we shall see, we can deal with Israel on this. Just have one. In Italy, what are we looking for? Just have one thing with Italy, period. When you go to the US, of course, the superpower, have 5 major things and have them deliver them, okay? Higher. If you go to France, if you go to South Korea, if you go, you tell South Korea, we just want a small part of your Samsung thing, bring it to Nairobi. Just one thing that can high value. So we should look at high value, okay? And of course, corruption must go. There are no two ways about it.
There are no two ways about it.
Corruption is everywhere in the world, as they say, but the fact that our corruption has made us poor shows that sisi tunakula nini matunda na tunakula mizizi. You don't even take at least some fruits and make sure that the roots are still, intact here. So I think when I say we should not look anywhere in particular. And in terms of bilateral relations, we should be non-aligned. We should go back to that non-aligned, okay? And people should die for us, like the US. You see, the US bites the bullet for Israel. I mean, everywhere, the whole world condemns Israel. The US can see, for example, they're killing tens of thousands of children and women. And if it was another country, the US would have sent their military there and, bombarded and whatever, or like the way NATO is doing in Ukraine. It's arming Ukraine and making sure that it tries to withstand, bombarding by Russia. So can the US stand for us in such a whatever, in such a situation? So let us have a few high-valued friends. Of course, even sports, we have people who we can, say, we don't need your money per se. Give us sports knowledge. You see. So we have this thing that we say Kenya should become a sport. We should enter the World Cup in the next 2 seasons. We should enter the World Cup. So look for a country that you can be able to, and not that you go begging there. We can even pay for them for the expertise. So let us look for money in tangible ways. Let's not go and look in tangible ways. Let us have things on the ground. Let's not be like these billionaires you see in our country that. Someone is a billionaire, but when you ask what industry is he in, he doesn't produce anything, but he's a billionaire. So that is the kind of, I think, culture that we have built at a national scale. So let us have tangible products and things that the outside world can say yes.
Talking about tangible things, Paul, do you think that from the onset, or rather from the outlook of the president's efforts, in all these cooperation agreements Kenya is entering with countries, do you think that there are fruits that you can say, okay, fine, Kenya is advocating for this is what we are doing, we are going to X country, we are going to the S country to pick this and that and that. These are the results.
Well, if you look at the deals, the biggest question here is, for you to get into a deal, you must have thought out on is it of importance to my country or otherwise. That is the first point. The second thing is, do you really need it at that particular moment? And number 3, upon ratifying the document or signing those treaties, the next question is, who is to do the follow-up? Or is it a question whereby if there's a change of regime, then we treat them as bygones? Because again, the most serious question that comes in is, there are a lot of deals and treaties that have been signed in the successive regimes. But as far as there is no follow-up, then we stand to gain too little from some of those deals. So the question here again takes me back to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the technocrats, some of the handlers, in terms of the ratification of these treaties, documentation, the paperwork bit of it, and then who is mandated to do the follow-up, and to what extent should we approve it as a success or a failure, and if which, then we go back to the strategic team and look at evaluation, whereby you sit back and monitor, say that, for example, we signed this deal, in this AGO agreement, for example, how did we gain? How do we stand to gain more if we renegotiate this deal? We go back and look at, for example, 60 Kenyan students to go and study in the US. Is this enough? Do we need more? And if so, do we have more or less of a clause within the deal whereby upon completing their studies, they have to come back home and serve their country within a certain duration? Or are we likely to face brain drain, whereby you come and capture some of our best minds, 60 of them, take them into the US, train them, after which they serve that economy, then they come back home upon retirement just to come and relax home. So you ask yourself now, are we gaining from it or not gaining from it? So that is the main question that our Ministry for Foreign Affairs and even the presidential team, the executive team, should be able to address. But apart from that, again, you see some of these deals, some of them are coming in form of aid, assistance. Something that I personally don't subscribe to, because I feel like this is dead aid. If you look at majority of the economists in the world have checked on the relations between Africa and the rest of the world, and you realize that for a very long time Africa has been marginalized. By marginalized is, in terms of economic assistance, out of every $7 that leave the African continent, 1 comes back home in form of aid. So it means we lose 6 and get back 1. So it means it's not equal kind of relations and transactions from the international perspective. And number two, if you're to look at Africa historically in international relations and diplomatically, Africa has faced a lot of challenges, whereby look at Africa during the slave trade. Majority of well-built, energetic youth left the continent to go and assist building other economies.
Industrialization.
If you look at colonial period, you find that again, a lot of raw materials left the continent. So today, we are in 21st century, but we are still facing the challenges that the continent has faced a couple of decades ago. Therefore, the question is, even in terms of raw materials, why don't we think of striking a deal whereby you come and set it up within the continent? We give you some, we can subsidize the cost maybe, or you come to our, yes, then you come, establish it, run it within a certain duration of time, after which, when you're done, we have it back, but in the so-called running it, you transfer what I call technological transfer. So that upon leaving, we say that, well, now we've got engineers who can comfortably and competently run this farm or run this industry to the gain of the continent and Kenya in specific. So I feel we have to relook the long term. Of course, there are short-term gains, but in the long term, what is the future of the coming generations? Because these are missions that the president is engaging in. And if I may quote the works of Frantz Fanon in his work, The Record of the Earth, Fanon says that every generation must understand its mission. And it's upon that generation to either fulfill the mission or betray the mission. And I'm happy to say that in this strategic movement that the president is making in the international arena is trying more or less to satisfy some mission. Remember, the power of a country also depends on its diplomatic magnitude. Do we have embassies all over the world? Because you cannot have embassies and consulars if there's nothing you're gaining from that country. So let's try as much as possible to broaden our diplomatic power in the international system, and then upon which capitalize on it, so that at the end of the day, it has a ripple effect. By gaining this, the neighborhood may also benefit from some of these deals. But we must do a follow-up, and at the end of the day, we must also have time limit. We cannot have a deal that has been signed in 2024 and waiting for it to be implemented in 2050.
Yeah, I think it's borderline to what you were saying earlier on. We've been there before, and you've said that. I mean, ever since this US trip came up back then. So when you look at the pertinent question that he was asking, what can Kenya sell? Do you think that at this point you have fashioned ourselves as a country? Fine, we are putting ourselves and saying, okay, we are open for A, B, C, D. But even if, as you look at the disparity of imports and exports, especially between Kenya and South Korea, there's 50.2 billion imports into Kenya and 6.1 billion exports to South Korea. Do you think that we are fashioning ourselves up to be in a position whereby we will then equalize this? Because at the end of the day, it's all about the numbers that will make sense. And then we can successfully, or we can comfortably say that this was a successful venture, this has not been successful, we need to go this other way.
I think, Judge, we have been open since independence, okay? So let's ask ourselves, why have there been no takers, okay? Because it's not the first time. I mean, there's nothing new. It's just that Ruto has accentuated, all this business of going to sign deals and everything, yeah? But really, for me, I think we need to see okay, tell me, for example, just a good example of someone new who has come to this country and brought serious investment, okay? We just find a lot of fast-moving consumer goods for time with Carrefour supermarkets, okay? But you have not seen a serious manufacturer come and say, I'm setting up a huge plant, okay? All we hear is that so-and-so has promised to put up a huge plant. I'm telling you, 5 years, 10 years will pass. You will not see that plant. Simply because of our governance. You see, people don't just come put money here. Even, okay, I don't know the truth of the matter, but I think you're in the news more than me.
Yes.
And maybe you're getting a lot of this news that investors are actually leaving. So if investors are actually leaving because of maybe what they find is an unfair tax regime, okay, and other, you know, investment hurdles, and then you're telling people to come in. I mean, so you can see the irony, the contradictions that we have, yeah? So I think for me, it's all about governance. And if we do not get our governance right, and make sure that we are deliberate about, you see all these things, we are very good at theories, okay? Oh, we do this, you know, we can get this from, but what are the strategies to get these things from people, okay? When a bank wants your money, they have strategized about how to get your money, okay? How to make you go and get a mortgage from there, and you'll end up mortgaging even yourself, you know? At one point, as far as they suck you in, so from that point you are at their mercy, because they have your house and you have their money, so you have to play ball, you know, whichever way, and sometimes it's rough and you get foreclosures and so forth, you see? So in the same way, we must have serious people in authority who are going to say, yes, these are the things that we would like investors here to, and this is what we are offering in return. Okay. But you don't now have a burning house and you're telling people, oh, come, you know.
Is a house burning?
And the people are dashing out. So people are like, where are you telling us to go? So I think for me, we need to really get serious because we are not. There's a lot of serious talk. That is that's what we have, serious talk. Okay. But I just said that we were having a discussion with someone, and we were like, what happened to things like cashew nuts? You know, you cannot afford cashew nuts in the supermarket. When I was schooling at the coast, a couple of decades, back when I was in high school in Malindi, as I told you. So cashew nuts were like, you know, you go to Kilifi. That time there was still the ferry, so you could find cashew nuts lined up all over. And the farmers there were making money, and everyone could share the cashew nuts. Now cashew nuts, we produce cashew nuts in Malindi, but even the producers cannot, unless they eat on the farm. Once they leave their farm, they cannot afford their own produce. Because that thing at the supermarket, have you seen how much cashew nuts cost?
Yeah, they're quite pricey.
It is, yesterday, I don't know, I think it's yesterday I was watching one of the TV stations, and I saw there's a project to bring back cashew nuts, you know? And I was like, why did we even kill? Yeah, why did we even lose it? So what do we kill? We are killing our own people, and then we start telling other people to come and help us. Our destiny lies in us. It's not a matter of checking out there. First of all, we have to look hard, a tough, hard look on ourselves and decide where have we gone wrong, and are we ready to change? Because unless we are not ready to change our hearts, then we are not going to go anywhere. We shall just have all this, a lot of, heat, but there's no light.
Mixed reactions I could see from Paul.
Oh, thank you. No, actually, I support what he's talking about. We've been serious talkers. We talk seriously out the international system. But I think it's high time whereby we start walking the talk. By walking the talk is we have to be introspective. Let's look into ourselves. Where have we got it wrong? How can we make it better? And as we make it better, I think we can also borrow a leaf from the case of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, whereby meritocracy. Meritocracy. Let's take our best out there. Let's get our best engineers doing this. For example, you remember even during World Cup in Qatar.
Qatar, yes.
Some of the best stadiums there have been done by Kenyan engineers. Yet back home, we don't have even a single stadium to celebrate about. Why don't we bring some of these best brains within the country to revamp our economy? So I feel like meritocracy should be at the foremost before anything else, be it in diplomacy, be it in the education sector, be it in the manufacturing. That is the only way in which we can have more or less what I call a notch high, or rather a starting point, or rather we can be ahead of the pack. Otherwise, if we continue playing the same way, the same system, then the results are likely to be the same. It's time whereby we have to check what are we good at, and how can we more or less become the world's best in this. For example, we are doing very well in athletics, But the question is, do we have enough facility, for example? Because most of these Kenyans who are breaking world records, they don't break world records in the African continent. They are breaking world record in the Western world. It tells you we don't have enough facility. Let's come and have those good stadiums within. Let's try as much as possible to equip our athletes, soccer, and all that. Otherwise,
so that then these big races can be held here.
Exactly, because also tourism, we have to attract people, because if Kipchoge Keino or Eliud Kipchoge is breaking records in Vienna, how many Kenyans go there to watch? And if at all there are people who are going to Vienna, then from the tourism sector, who is benefiting big? Vienna. Who is reaping big? But if at all such a record is being broken somewhere in Eldoret or somewhere in Nyeri or even in Malindi, then we'll be attracting so many tourists from the rest of the world coming into the continent. And apart from just watching Eliud Kipchoge breaking these records, they also purchase 1 or 2 items that have been produced locally from within the country.
So we need to bring the conversation to a close. So I'll sum up your comments with the, just 2 minutes of the closing remarks.
I mean, this is broad, and it can, I mean, we can discuss this.
And spiral it up
of
all
course.
through.
When you're in a pub, this is what we discuss the whole night. But here we put it now here in 2 hours.
In 2 hours, yes.
But I think I want to follow up on his point about leveraging on our talents, and what other resources we have. So, for example, if Rift Valley, for example, we know it's an athletic, not even sporting, it's an athletic nation. In the Rift Valley.
Yes.
We should have Adidas and Nike and all those guys putting up some serious investment, even making of those gabs. Okay? You have seen what Isuzu have done with the
trucks.
Isuzu with this D-Max, Kipchoge. They're marketing using Kipchoge, So you can even have Kipchoge
as a cloth line.
Yes, as a cloth line. An Adidas cloth line of, and these are not dreams. These are things that if you have serious leadership, you can put them on the ground.
Sure.
You see? So Rift Valley, then you have those guys, Adidas, who they come and bring their money, their serious money. If you look at most of the people, like now, someone like Kipchoge, a lot of his money goes with his managers. Okay, there, his whatever, his promoters and all that. Okay, they take a cut.
Quite a huge.
Yeah, they take quite a huge cut. So as we just left with, so we must demand. Someone like Nani will say, someone like Kipchoge would say, okay, Nike, Adidas, and of course the government should be able to whatever him and say, this is the deal.
Yeah. This is the way.
This is the way I want us to split this thing. You see, so let us be people who are now going out there and being aggressive. So the rest of the world will say, "Excuse me, these are different guys that we are dealing with. Not the same beggars that Yeah. So if it is someone like Nyeri, what are our strong points in Nyeri?
Absolutely.
We set up a cottage industry that brings that we perfect. If you go to Mombasa, we know it's tourism and whatever. But still there are hard industries like juices that we can, it's a fruity place, mangoes and stuff. Right?
Absolutely.
So we need visionary leadership. He says Singapore, Malaysia. These are discussions we're going to have another day.
Yes.
But democracy, our version of democracy which we have adopted, is part of the problem.
Part of the problem.
Yes.
You get the last word, Aginah.
Thank you. Kenya is a beautiful girl in the world. It's Kenyan time to attract as many as possible years. But as we do this, let's do it strategically. Let's embrace the doctrine of meritocracy in each and every bilateral or multilateral negotiation you are getting into. All is not lost. It's better to start, because when you start, we are talking of, are you going to achieve it or not? The president has set the ball rolling. It's now up to us and the rest of other Kenyans to ensure that at the end of it all, Kenya stands to gain. Thank you.
Brilliant. What a way to wind up the program. Speaking to Stephen Ndengwa on my immediate left, Executive Director of South-South Dialogues. Thank you for joining us, as well as Paul Aginah, International Relations Expert and PhD lecturer at Multimedia University, and also pursuing your PhD.
Thank you.
Brilliant, gentlemen.
I'm also doing my PhD.
And you're also doing your PhD. So very soon you're going to have doctors.
Yes, we shall be as doctors.
God willing, inshallah. Amin. So thank you so much for watching, and also for your great feedback. That's all the time we had for right here on the Daily Report. I am George Maringa. I'll see you next time tomorrow morning on Morning Cafe. We breathe in some new energy as we discuss matters, state of the nation and others, and later on the People's Court. So do stay with us right here on TV 47. As always, stay safe and be kind to one another.